The BBC now faces a fiscal crisis entirely of its own making. Last year, it lost more than £1 billion through licence fee evasion and cancellation. This is an astonishing figure for an institution that still imagines itself funded by a mid-20th century model rooted in household addresses, broadcast signals and doorstep inspections. The Public Accounts Committee's report makes it plain that what many of us has long suspected, that the ground is shifting faster than the BBC has been willing to admit. A significant proportion of the lost revenue reflects straightforward evasion. 1 in 8 users now consumes BBC content without paying for it, costing roughly £550 million. Another £617 million disappears because some 3.6 million households simply say they do not need a licence at all. In total, the BBC is staring at a potential 1.1 billion black hole. Yet even after 2 million reinforcement visits, an extraordinary number in a single year, there has been no proportional improvement in compliance. Prosecutions have fallen, doors are not opened, and the entire method looks archaic, intrusive and increasingly futile. The truth is that the enforcement model has become mismatched with modern consumption. iPlayer registration is tied to an email address, not an address in Derby or Dundee. The BBC's licensing database is still built on the fiction that households watch linear television through a box in the corner of the sitting room. In reality, the modern viewer is mobile, digital and international. And here the absurdity bites hardest. Those of us who pay cannot access the service abroad, even temporarily, unless we resort to a VPN and feel vaguely criminal for doing so. This is the point where loyalty to the system frays. A funding model cannot survive when it penalises compliance and rewards evasion. The deeper problem is not only financial but generational. Only half of younger audiences feel the BBC reflects them. Their consumption habits lie elsewhere. Meanwhile, in a bid to appear contemporary, the BBC has embraced short-form formats on platforms like TikTok, but this risks alienating older audiences who still rely on radio and broadcast channels. The digital-first strategy may become a digital-only strategy by stealth, leaving behind those who lack reliable broadband or familiarity with multi-platform media. The report also strikes at the heart of the BBC's claim to universality. Decisions sold as local, such as relocating production to Birmingham or Manchester, have diluted genuine local identity. Local radio from pooled regional hubs doesn't serve Sheffield, Southampton or Swansea with the intimacy that older audiences expect and deserve. The dependence on repeats is absurd. At the same time, the BBC's attempts to compensate for declining licence revenue through commercial ventures lacks transparency. Parliament cannot even see the projected returns on major decisions such as the acquisition of BritBox. All this unfolds against a backdrop of editorial scandals, accusations of bias, and the resignation of senior figures like Tim Davie and Deborah Turnus. And the credibility of the covenant between broadcaster and public is weaker today than at any point since the licence fee was introduced. When Nigel Farage calls the model unacceptable, he is tapping into a discontent that now spans the political spectrum. When the Culture Secretary prepares a consultation on a complete overhaul of the Royal Charter, the writing is already on the wall. The central question is simple. Can a compulsory regressive levy tied to a physical property address survive in an era in which viewing is personalised, portable and international? The PAC's answer is clear. Without a modernised framework, one that recognises digital identity, online viewing habits and global mobility, the BBC will lose both revenue and legitimacy. The public, especially younger audiences, have choices. They are exercising them. Older audiences whom the BBC was created to serve feel neglected, and those who uphold the system by paying for it are increasingly treated as supplicants when travelling abroad. I called this out a few days ago, and for a few hours I was certainly thinking of abandoning my licence fee altogether. I'm less inclined to that now. I found a workaround, but it is painful, it is expensive, and I feel I am in effect paying twice for the privilege of accessing the BBC, and I don't access it very much. That's the irony of it, is that I'm not terribly interested in watching BBC content. I like to wake up in the morning to Today. But actually, a lot of today, a lot of the Radio 4 broadcast is repetitive. The BBC has long styled itself as a universal service. That claim is now at risk. What is needed is not another round of house calls, but a new settlement built around personal accounts, transparent commercial investment, and access that follows the viewer rather than shackles them to a postcode. Unless these changes come quickly, the BBC will not only continue to lose revenue, but it will lose the argument for its own existence.